Ladies and gentlemen, one thing that I noticed over the past couple of weeks is this. You can live in the exact same world as someone else. They have the same information available to them, and yet they live in a completely different reality. Now, you may have heard of Trump derangement syndrome. Well, I tell you what, it has extended to the great man Joe Rogan. And I know, I've talked about Joe a lot on this channel, and I am the president of the Joe Rogan Dick Riders Association Australian chapter. But I'll tell you this, he's a lovely, beautiful man, and we all love Joe. So when someone talks shit about the great Rogan, I get the shits, and so do a lot of other people. And I tell you what is absolutely hilarious about this story is not only is this person a powerful person who's talking shit, it's someone who is government funded. So I want to introduce you to someone called Kim Williams. Kim. Hi, Kim. Him is the chairman, the boss, the leader of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, of which most of its funding comes from the Australian government. So I found it extremely interesting that a government-funded organisation would come out and talk so much shit about Joe Rogan. It seems ever since he had Trump on his show, people have lost the fucking plot. They can't deal with the fact that he is the #1 podcast host in the world and the leader of the new media. These people are shaking in their boots. We're going to get to the video in just a second, but I just want you to understand that this is what happens when people's backs are against the wall. He knows that Joe Rogan has more influence than he ever will. He knows that he is losing influence day by day. More people are choosing not to interact with his media service and media services like his. And he completely understands that there's no coming back from this. And the only way to combat it in his mind is to discredit his competition, which in this case is Joe Rogan. This is the National Press Club, which sounds like a fucking ball. A reporter asks in a very leading question, I will add, about Joe Rogan. He's such a bad person, Joe Rogan. He had Trump on his show. And can I just say about Trump on the Rogan podcast? Trump's out there for 3 hours. We've been asking this of our politicians all over the world for decades, to sit down for a number of hours and actually have an open discussion that we can listen in on. It never happens. It's just talking points. That's why people got the most out of Trump's conversation. They wanted Kamala to do it, but she was carrying on like a fucking twat. She wouldn't fly to Rogan. She wouldn't do the 3 hours. She'd sit down for 45 minutes and wanted Rogan to fly to her. Terms and conditions don't work with that type of shit, babe. We're trying to understand who you are as a person, and then maybe we can understand who you are as a politician. I don't give a shit if you like Trump or not, all right? He sat there and he was able to be a human being-ish. He did a lot of Trumpisms, but anyway, I digress. It doesn't matter. Let's have a look at the question from the reporter, and then let's have a look at the response from this fucking nutbag, Chris. His name's not even Chris, it's Kim. Nice name, Kim. You loser.
I have a question about Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
And you've sort of touched on elements of this in the US. He's obviously the world's most popular podcast host. He has 3 billion listeners.
Really? 3 billion? From what I can deduce, it's about 42 million listeners regularly listen to Rogan's podcast in America. And that goes into 3 billion 71.5 times. I don't think 3 billion's correct. It's a lot. But 3 billion's half the fucking population of the world. I don't think it's that fucking high.
He's sort of managed to successfully capture that bro market in America.
Which is the dude market or the man market. And it's referred to as the bro market because Joe is involved in MMA. And if you're involved in MMA, you must be a fucking idiot. In reality, we're talking about the best athletes in the world, and because dudes enjoy it, apparently that's not a good thing, and that's a bro thing to do. And on top of that, all the things that are really good for you, eating well, that's bro shit. Going to the gym, that's bro shit. Ice baths, bro shit. Saunas, bro shit. Whatever, babe. Shut the fuck up.
And his influence is such that in the wake of the US election, the Democrats have said that one of Kamala Harris's mistakes was that she didn't appear on his program. So I'm just wondering if you had any observations about what's behind the Joe Rogan effect, how you believe he's managed to so successfully capture this huge market. And then for us here in Australia...
I'll tell you exactly how he's done it. Over the last decade and a bit, he has had on hundreds of guests, probably 1,000 different guests. And he's captured their audiences and they've come in and have interesting conversations. Some conversations might not interest you. They didn't interest me, but others will. I found out a lot about different things that I never thought I would be ever interested in. Even bow hunting. When the fuck would I ever think that bow hunting is an interest of mine? But one of my best mates, Adam Greentree, is one of the best in the world. And if Joe didn't have him on his podcast, I never would have heard about bow hunting, and I never would have heard about Adam Greentree and found out we lived in the same fucking area. My point is, Joe brings in all these different guests from all these different walks of life. And what does he do? He just sits and has a conversation. This isn't this evil force trying to take over the world. That's not what Rogan's trying to do. He's fucking talking to people. And the media can't deal with that because they're so scripted. They're in control of every little conversation that they have. And they don't understand that that's not what people want. They might have wanted that in the 50s and the 60s when TV first came in, but that's not today. All right, we're going to get to fucking Kimmy Boy Williams in a second. Let's do it.
You know, how would or should the ABC be going about capturing that kind of audience?
Look, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to respond to that question. I am not a consumer or enthusiast about Mr. Rogan and his work.
You look like you lift kettlebells, bro. You look like you ingest heaps of testosterone. You look like a Rogan podcast listener.
Shocking.
I am not one of the 3 billion. I think people like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities.
People like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities.
They prey on fear.
He preys on fear.
They prey on anxiety. They prey on all of the elements that contribute to uncertainty in society, and they entrepreneur fantasy outcomes and conspiracy outcomes.
Let's just have a very, very quick listen to exactly what he just said just then.
People like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities. They prey on fear. They prey on anxiety. They prey on all of the elements.
You're talking about the news media. That's exactly what you do, you fucking... Are you serious, mate? This goes to show what is going on inside this man's mind. In his mind, he sits in his fancy little boardroom that's government funded, and he goes, mate, we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing by the world. We're helping. No, you're fucking not. You don't know what you're talking about, mate. You push your agenda. You prey on people's vulnerabilities. You prey on their anxiety. That is what the media does. If it bleeds, it leads. That is where that fucking saying comes from.
And they entrepreneur fantasy outcomes and conspiracy outcomes.
How unself-aware can you be to say something as bananas as that?
As being a normal part of social narrative. I personally find it deeply repulsive. And to think that someone has such remarkable power in the United States is something that I look at in disbelief.
Yeah, I bet you look at people like Rogan who have this enormous influence and didn't play by your handbook with disbelief. I bet you can't understand why the common person would have anything to do with them, because you're not the common person. You live in this fantasy world. That's what I'm talking about. You have the exact same information that I have access to, and yet we have two very different worldviews. I don't know anything about Chris Williams. I know he worked for Rupert Murdoch for a long time. I don't want to know anything about this fucking twat, all right? No one watches the ABC here in Australia anyway. But just that he has the gall to stand there and say these things like they're fact, and then all the journalists are in there all giggling. We are in a tough situation here in Australia right now. We really are. Like, we've just somehow dodged this misinformation bill where the government was going to control the truth, literally the Ministry for Truth. They're about to introduce a bill right now where social media will be banned for kids under the age of 16, which, doesn't sound absolutely terrible, although I think 16-year-olds should be able to use fucking Facebook if they want to. But for you to access it, you'll have to provide your ID. You have to verify who you are, that you are over the age of 16. And then all these social media companies will have access to all your biometrics. They'll know who you are, all this shit. Can the government get the fuck out of our pockets? This is why people like Rogan are so popular, because people are sick of what is provided to us.
I'm also absolutely in dismay that this can be a source of public entertainment when it's really treating the public as plunder for purposes that are really quite malevolent.
He says all of that with no irony. He is the leader of the government-funded news. Ladies and gents, I'd love to know what you think. I'll tell you what Joe said. He said, lol, what? Which is the perfect reaction to that. He also said he would never move to Australia because the country put people in concentration camps. Oh, that sounds a bit conspiratorial. I have no opinion on all the things that Joe's ever said on that, unless you're watching this on Rumble. Welcome back, YouTube. If you went on Rumble and watched that, it was me for 30 seconds just fucking having a fucking... I share RFK's worm in my brain. I had a worm incident. I just fucking lost my fucking mind. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Personally, this doesn't surprise me. This is what people do to discredit other people. And your auntie or your mum or your dad, these people in their 60s, they will hear the ABC people say these type of things, and then that's what they'll parrot. Fuck them. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Me dick stinks. Toodaloo au revoir. Bye-bye.